Okay, we're switching over, just so y'all know, officially.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, I am just going to turn off the music because it gets aggressive after a while. Even though I know everyone loves the fantasy music, I'm like, okay. Also, hi, now that everyone can see us. Quick thing I want to address before I introduce everyone. You may be like, what the hell's that intro? Yeah, I logged into my streaming service today and saw that they deleted all of my intros. I was like,
Oh no.
I know. So, that is the intro, and I don't know what it'll be for Akatar, but we'll probably just switch everything to make it all match. But hi everyone, welcome back to the Mass Read Along. I know it's been like a month and a half, if not 2 months almost, but we took a much needed break, and tonight we are officially wrapping up Throne of Glass, which
Woo.
I'm happy to say I'm okay with. So I'm excited. We're going to be talking about Throne of Glass. Quickly, one more thing before we do the intros. Don't forget, we are going to be going through Slido tonight. If you just go to slido.com, you type in the code Kingsflame. That's the code tonight. And that is where you'll see all the Q&A questions. But I will go ahead and introduce everyone. So first, to my left, sorry. I have the lovely Avery, who's my co-host on Word from the Realm. We are recording, by the way, people have been asking, we're recording Tower of Dawn this weekend. And then at some point we'll get to Kingdom of Ash. So we're trying to get back on track. So February is like fresh start with Akhtar. But that is Avery. Then below Avery is Ashley from Books in My Third Place, who just opened a Discord and is doing a Brandon Sanderson read along, aren't you?
I am. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so she's got that. And then right below me is the lovely Caitlin, who is now officially married. So she's hanging out with us at her new setup for you officially, which is kind of cool.
Getting there.
Yeah.
I haven't built the library yet. Eventually, I will have a room where I'll be like Ashley. I will have a wall of books. That is the goal. Okay, we're getting there.
I know. It's a slow process. So, for tonight, I just want to go over some quick ground rules. So tonight we're gonna be talking all of Throne of Glass. We'll spend quite a few, obviously the majority of the chunk on Kingdom of Ash, but we'll obviously be talking about the entire series. As something that is popularly requested at the last 30 minutes, when we kind of feel like we're done talking about this, we are saving it to discuss crossover. So that means if you've not read up to Hosab, that's that part. Now, to kind of help the folks not get spoiled for anyone who has not read House of Sky and Breath yet or fully caught up, please save those questions until we tell you and then put them in the Slido. So don't put them in the Slido now, just because I want to make sure everyone remains spoiler free. But because I know we have quite a few people who are either starting Throne of Glass or no one I think is starting Akatar, which is kind of funny, and then a few people starting Crescent City. So we just want to we'll give you plenty of warning before we send you on your way. But for now, it is just Throne of Glass spoilers, just so everyone. We might bring up like a few Akatar things, but I think you all know who Reese is, and I think we're fine with that. So
Yeah.
I think we're good. Cool. Now, I will be totally honest and say it's been a while since I did my reread of Kingdom of Ash, so I'm a little fuzzy. Is it fresh in anyone's mind?
Nope.
Okay, great. Luckily, I can tell you I have like a pretty solid memory of the book, so I can answer some of the more tougher questions and kind of get into some of the nitty gritty. The last thing I want to bring up, because I'm wearing it and I wanted to just quickly call it out. So between the pages, so quick side note, I know a lot of people are making Sarah J. Maas jewelry out there. I am personally, if you've never noticed, I wear this ring. I have now new earrings on because my mom's like, you need to wear earrings more. I only wear fine jewelry because my skin reacts funky to things that are not sterling, and I like gold, so that makes it even harder because it's really expensive. So I don't wear a lot of jewelry, and the things I do I save up for because I like to spend a lot of money on it, of course. Between the Pages is the first one to make fine jewelry of Sarah J. Maas stuff, which is like, oh my god. Also, it won't turn, which is like my favorite thing. And so when she was making Aylin's amulet, and she was like, I want to put the word marks on the back, I immediately DM'd her and I was like, oh my god, I gotta see what this looks like. Like, oh my god. So she's incredible. I love her to death. And she sent me Aylin's amulet, which does have the Nameless is Our Price word marks on the back. And so she's great. She also has Bryce's I always mess up how you say it, but it's the
Archesian.
Archesian, thank you. Archesian amulet, which I totally want to get at some point in my life. So just so everyone knows, go check her out. But I love that she does fine jewelry. So, okay, now on to Kingdom of Ash. Now, I will say, does anyone remember the first time you read it? Like, what is it, like your first experience going through it? I guess we can dive into that. I've talked enough, so I'll let someone else talk.
Anybody?
I can talk.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
So I read Kingdom of Ash at the end of 2020. So obviously,
Okay.
or no, yeah, 2020. So that was obviously a very like traumatic year. And
Yes.
I just remember that I never really cry in books. And I think I sobbed like at least 3 times in Kingdom of Ash. It's just the amount of like emotions and feelings and roller coasters that you go through when you read this book. It's a lot, and it's a lot of trauma. And I think as I've like, gotten older, we're now in 2023, like I'm starting to relate more with the trauma. So it's just I'm only like 10 chapters in on my reread. But it's just like I'm connecting with it in a different way than I did at the first time. And it's just it was special the first time, and it's special the second time again. So I'm really enjoying it.
Well, and you're in the tough part. 10 chapters in is like,
Gosh.
she's just now kneeling in glass. So,
Yeah, no, thank you.
yeah. Ashley, how about you?
So I also read it in 2020 in the summer. I think a lot of us read it in 2020.
Yeah.
And I was binging. So I had binged ACOTAR first and then went straight because I was like, I need more Sarah J. Maas. And so, of course, I binged all of Throne of Glass. And I remember getting to Kingdom of Ash and I was up visiting my parents, and you guys know, but for everyone else, it's like they live in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of like mountains and trees and forests. It's very Terrason-esque. And so it was like the perfect setting to read it because it just kind of brought all those images to life. And I also cried, but I was just telling Avery that I did not cry at chapter 89, which most people do. And I was like so much more invested in Aylin and Rowan's story and the rest of the cadre, and like especially Lorcan and Elide, which I know is maybe a point of contention with this group, but we'll get to that. But yeah, I'm excited for my reread.
Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely talk about Lorcan and Elide for sure. Avery, what about you?
So I was probably the latest to read it. I read it in March of 2021. So I read ACOTAR at the end of December into the first part of January, right before Silver Flames came out.
Okay.
Then I read Silver Flames. Then I read Throne of Glass.
Oh, right.
And I was the weirdo who did the Tower of Dawn and then Empire of Storms, but skipped the Fireheart chapter and then went back to the Fireheart chapter. So I finished Empire of Storms at my my former roommate and we used to just have like reading parties where I'd go over to her house and sit in her living room and we'd each read separately in silence for several hours and then leave. Like that was how we chose to spend our time together. Introverts unite. Anyways, so I was finishing up Empire of Storms over at her house and Kingdom of Ash was at my house. So I finished Empire of Storms, was like, love you, gotta go. Drove home as fast as I could, and then read the Fireheart chapter of Tower of Dawn because I had a friend who was Sherpa-ing me through it. And so I read that. And then I started in Kingdom of Ash at probably 11 o'clock at night. And I didn't stop until the rescue happened. And then I fell asleep. And then I had the whole day off of work the next day. And so I reread like the previous 2 chapters of the rescue to like remind myself because I was asleep. And then I read the entire rest of Kingdom of Ash in a day.
That's the way to do it, though.
I binged the whole thing. And I was very, very not well at 89 and 90. But I was heavily invested in the witches. And then, there's a video somewhere, but I basically was just like, there's no way they all make it. So I was like mentally preparing myself for like some of them to not make it. And then it was just really not good.
Yeah.
There's hyperventilating, there's swollen eyes, there's all captured on candid camera for you.
Many know that I skipped Tower of Dawn because I was so devastated to find out that Aylin was in an iron coffin that I couldn't hang. And I, very similar to Avery, stayed, I think I started at like 10 p.m. and I stayed up until 1 a.m. basically needing to get to Aylin with Rowan again. Like I needed that moment.
Mhm.
And I will tell you, it's a horrible idea to skip Tower of Dawn. That's why I'm like the biggest preacher of like, don't do it. Because you get to the Kale chapters and you're like, what the hell is going
Well,
on?
also, especially on a reread when you know things, it's very important.
Yeah, it's very important. It's very important. So, yeah, especially if you're rereading it, don't skip
Yeah.
it. Do not skip
Don't
it.
skip it.
Okay. But it was, I remember, so a lot of you guys, I've said this before. I think unlike a lot of the group here, I was a late bloomer in reading. I didn't really get into it until I was older. My mom begged and begged and begged and wanted me to be a reader, and I just wasn't a reader. And then I read Harry Potter and was like super invested. And I remember when I finished not Kingdom of Ash, sorry, Deathly Hallows. It was like 5 a.m. I was listening to the audiobook and I'm like listening to the epilogue. And I was crying because I thought this is the end of my reading journey. I'm never going to have this moment again of like saying goodbye to characters I had loved. And then I read Twilight like a year later and it was more the teeny bopper feeling. It wasn't the same. Also, that ending was, I wanted to chuck it, so I was okay with it ending. But this was the first time since 2007 that I had that feeling when I got to the last few chapters of Kingdom of Ash, which is why even to this day I get so emotional reading like Aylin's coronation and seeing everyone say goodbye, especially when Dorian and Kale hug her for the last time. It feels like the Golden Trio saying goodbye to each other. And so it gives me that same feeling. And if anyone has never done this before, it's like epically emotional is if you listen to The Call by Regina Spektor while you're reading those last 2 chapters. It matches up perfectly. It is why it's in the playlist. It's why it will be it's the last song in the Kingdom of Ash playlist. Because you get that feeling again. So that's why I'm so passionate about Throne of Glass, because I remember literally reading that last page and being like, everyone needs to experience this. Like, I loved ACOTAR, don't get me wrong, but that feeling of you spent 7 books, 6 for me, 6 books going through, and it was devastating to say goodbye to all of them. Like, it wasn't just Rowan and Aylin. I was like, oh my God, I'm saying goodbye to Dorian. I'm saying goodbye to Manon. I'm saying goodbye to all these people. And I remember reading, this is a true story, I swear to God. I remember reading the first pages of ACOTAR and literally looking for Rowan. I was like, he's going to show up, right? Like, I'm going to see a hawk. I'm going to see something that's going to indicate. And like, I saw wings and I got like it was bat wings. So like, it wasn't the same thing. Like, and it gives a different feeling, but I'm very nostalgic. I have spent a lot of time with Throne of Glass, so I'm ready to like punt it across the room for like 10 months. But it's sentimental for me. It's the Harry Potter. Also, I don't know if anyone else felt this, but there's moments towards the end, especially when Aylin's putting the keys in her arm, it felt a lot like Deathly Hallows. Like, there were definitely some vibes.
Yeah. I mean, they're both based heavily in mythology, so it doesn't surprise me that there's some vibes there.
Yeah, and I think it's also just like the epicness of like, you have to sacrifice yourself. You found that out later. I mean, Aylin found it out quicker than Harry did, but like when you find that out and you're just like, really?
We're here for an 11th hour reveal.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I just kept thinking like, there's no way she's gonna die. Like, she's not gonna die. Book Talk would have spoiled that for me by now. Like,
yeah.
But she was still kicking. So
you were talking about that ending with Dorian and Kale. I sobbed so much I had to put the book down. Like, I literally was like, it sounded like I was hyperventilating. Like, I was like, never before. It was just so like special and like, I love Rowan, like he's great, whatever. But like, we have gone through from the beginning with Dorian and Kale, and just to see that character development throughout the entire series, it just that moment was just so special. I loved it so much.
As frustrating as Kale is as an individual character, you have to respect the three of them together.
Yeah.
So,
but I think that's what kills me when people give up on it after like the series as a whole after like 1 or 2 books or they read like Assassin's Blade and the characters and also just the writing and the depth of it is so drastically different from the first couple of books to Kingdom of Ash. And by the time you get to that, it just, you realize like all of the seeds, well, and especially if you start reading all the other series, it's interesting, like all these different seeds and things that get planted.
Yeah, and Sarah is, I mean, I think the biggest one was at the end of Empire of Storms when you see, you know, the Silent Assassins and you see Ansel and you see, you know, the Ash Rivers come. It was like you're sitting there on the beach with Rowan and you're like, damn it, Sarah, like all of it right now, like this is horrible. So the fact that and I think that's where I really struggled with ACOTAR as a series, because those seeds were planted so early in Throne of Glass that we really got to see them grow, whereas I felt like they were planted a little quicker in ACOTAR. But it's a different story. It's a different way of telling a story. That's in first person.
And you've got 8 books with Throne of Glass, and you technically had 3 intended with ACOTAR.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
you've got it. The difference between a saga and a trilogy and getting to plant those seeds and let them grow is because a trilogy you got to rush.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it'll make you feel like you're rushing it.
Yeah, for sure. And it just, I also think the priority had shifted in that series, you know?
Yeah.
It was very, I mean, we all say this. Throne of Glass is more story driven. ACOTAR is more relationship driven. And that's the biggest tell of the two. Not to say that one is lesser than the other.
No.
It's just, you know. Oh, someone said I was lucky enough to read these as they released, and let me tell you, I'm a little jealous of everyone who got to binge it. I have to give you
lucky enough. I'm so sorry.
I have to give you major props for reading it as it was released, because I don't think I could do it.
That would have been so rough.
I just don't, especially if I had gotten to it and then finished at Empire of Storms and had to wait. I probably would have DNF'd.
And then get a whole book of Kale instead.
I would have DNF'd. I would have straight up DNF'd. Like, I would have been like, no. Someone write the fanfic that she's out of the coffin and I'll be good. Like,
yeah.
I also think, though, what's interesting, and I think quite a few of us can kind of dive into this, you know, when I was a reader in like 2010s, books that were popular back then, I mean, even if you look at the arc of Throne of Glass, it compares it to Hunger Games. It compares it to City of Bones. Those were the popular books back then. And Throne of Glass was really different. Like it was more of that epic fantasy saga. And I think the YA genre needed that at the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I also think it was the perfect segue for Sarah to write something like ACOTAR, because she proved that she could do the fantasy. Now let her do the romance. So, and then Crescent City, she was like,
for lack of a better term, mic drop.
Yeah, exactly. The waiting was terrible. I can only imagine. I will tell you. So something that's kind of fun is like, I mean, we can all speak to this as book talkers. We really got to see it was like a new age hype. You know, we all kind of hopped into it while the series was very, you know, it was picking up steam. I don't think Avery was just talking about the original covers. I mean, now I think they sell for like hundreds and hundreds of dollars for ACOTAR, and probably 3 years ago it was like maybe $20. Like no one really thought anything of it. And you know, I was talking to some people who were fans very early on, and I just was curious about their perspective. And it is interesting to hear how different the fandom was back then versus now. And I think it was a much more relaxed, calm. Their big issue was Kale versus Rowan.
What is calm?
Right.
It was just a different. It was a different.
I'm not
beast.
sure I understand what calm means.
Well, I'm just saying that it was it was a very.
I don't compute.
It's just a very interesting. The fandom has really changed because of TikTok, and I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know it's hard for people to look at that who are not on TikTok and they were on Bookstagram or BookTube, but I mean, even I was watching some of Sarah's old videos when she did stuff with booktubers, and it's like, it's a it's a different beast. I mean, people are telling her to call Selena, Selena, and she's like, it's like, and then she's like Chol, and she's, Sarah's like, it's Kale. Like, no one would ever dare to say that to her face now, but it's funny how different the fandom is because of TikTok. So, okay, well, I think the one thing I wanted to ask while we kind of, I guess before we like totally go crazy, is going to the beginning of the book. First off, did anyone look up when she was going to get rescued? Because I know I literally, this was the only thing I looked up.
No,
It was the
absolutely
only thing
not.
I looked up.
So
no spoilers.
my Sherpa was asleep. And at this point, because we're talking like 2 a.m. my time.
Right.
My Sherpa was asleep. I'm 15 chapters deep at this point, and I'm like, I can't, it's 2 a.m. I can't keep going. I'm going to pass out. I worked all day. I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
And so I went on Google, and all I looked up without any other spoilers was just, what chapter is it that Aylin is rescued? That's all I looked up. And it said chapter 20, whatever.
29.
And I went, 29. And I went, great. And then I took a bookmark and I found chapter 30 and I stuck a bookmark there and I just kept reading until I got to the bookmark. I was like, I gotta just keep going.
So I am notorious for anything that is not Sarah J. Maas to look it up. No. And except for Hosab. Hosab was the exception because I knew how that book was ending. So I just went, whatever, I know how it's ending. Let me go crazy.
I don't want to talk about Hosab.
But anything else, I've never look up like how it goes. I just kind of go, I'm along for the ride. But I did Wikipedia like a play-by-play of exactly Kingdom of Ash, and I skimmed it until it said rescue, and I was like, that's about 20%. Okay, I'm good. Like, that's kind of how I gauged it. And then I let myself, I didn't know how she was going to get rescued. I didn't know it was going to be this dramatic moment, but
well, and the best part about Googling it is now it's, I guess, such an asked question that it's like a bold thing that pops up that says chapter 29.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah. If I'm remembering correctly, and I'm recalling from March of 21. So if I'm wrong, I'm sorry. But at the time, what I remember is it like popped up like one of those frequently asked questions that said chapter 29 or whatever. And I was like, okay,
chapter
great.
28. Yeah, literally. Yep. Well, I say it's 29. They're saying 28 because it's like at the very end of 28 is like when she goes to Lorcan, but it's really like 29 and 30. But yeah.
Yeah. And so I was like, that's all I got. It was like chapter this. And I was like, great. Moving on.
Close
Don't want to see
it.
anything else. I just need to know what I got to get to before I can go to bed and read this tomorrow.
Well, and I think too, this is the funny thing. So if you did, we all obviously binge read them, whereas like other people didn't. When you binge read it, this is what you get. You get to the end of Tower of Dawn. So you have to read that horrible epilogue with Maeve. And then you have to read Prince and Princess, which is Aylin and Rowan talking about each other. And then you get, I think like the first chapter is Adian. Like it's Rowan and then it's Adian. And the Adian chapter is super long because you're finding out how horrible they're doing in Terrasen. And you're just like, oh, okay. Is anyone okay right now? Is everyone dying? Like,
not good.
Nothing's good. So it's a little, Kingdom of, and that's also the funny thing too. I didn't realize until I did the reread, obviously it appreciated Tower of Dawn. You don't get a lot of Kale and Irene until Aylin's rescued. Like that was the storyline that kind of suffered in the beginning. And it didn't necessarily suffer, but you didn't see it until she was rescued. And then it was like, oh, now we're in Anielle. Now we really get to experience it. So.
I feel like not the whole reason, but maybe just a factor was because when she was releasing and people were reading it at the time, she was not going to put people through that torture of going through more Kale. Right. They just went through a whole book. So she's like, okay, Kale's on the back burner until Selena's fine.
I think you're right. I mean,
that makes sense.
And I also think if you look at Kingdom of Ash, like when you start, I remember, and I think I still have the slideshow, so I can always show it. We have like a marker of where everyone is, and you see them move. Like we made it look like they're moving. I mean, first off, Rowan and Aylin are moving at a snail's pace. Okay, I just want everyone to know, except when Rowan is traveling. If there is one thing that Avery and I know about Sarah J. Maas, she doesn't do math. She doesn't do dates, and she doesn't do travel.
The timeline will make you pull your hair out.
Because I don't know.
Authors are just bad at math.
The timeline will make you pull your hair out.
It cracks me up because when you're paying attention to like, okay, so Rowan, Illy, Lorcan, Gabriel, they're all in one spot. They're right in Wendelin. And then they think that she could potentially be in the desert, and somehow they get there in less than a week. Now, in previous books, it took Aylin 2 to 3 weeks by boat to get from Otterlin to Wendelin. So I know Rowan's a hawk, but he's actually one of the smallest hawk breeds, because I do know that. There's no way his little wings flew in a week when a boat takes like 2 to 3. Like,
I'm sorry. Are we saying he has a small wingspan?
No, if we're going to talk about that,
No.
it's perfectly fine. He doesn't need to play those stupid wingspan jokes that the freaking Bat Boys do.
I just like to do that every so often.
I'm just saying, he's
more
perfectly
fun.
fine.
Sure he is.
This is also the problem. Is like, all the Agatar ladies and even Crescent City, they got all their crazy, spicy scenes. I get my 2 kind of crappy ones.
I'm sorry.
I mean, the one in Kingdom of Ash is like nothing to write home about. I'm like, that's it.
I don't know if you guys had watched the video that I sent you from my wedding, but the end of my vows is Rowan's declaration on the sand. That was how I ended my vows.
Oh,
Listen, it's the original SJM male declaration.
I had it in there.
Yeah.
Genius.
I had a lot of people that were, because I had a lot of book references in my vows.
Mm-hmm.
I had my one friend. He was very upset that I didn't end with "to whatever end." He was like, "Why didn't you finish with that?" And I was like, and my argument was, there is no end. That was
right.
That was
That's cute. That is cute. Which
Rowan.
This just reminded me, we need to talk at the end about Elena, because Avery and I were like, did she really go? But she did. So I just
does.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because we were like, yeah, basically like Voldemort, like just disintegrated.
Voldemort in the movie.
In the movie.
Let's
the book.
be very clear about that.
Yeah. But anyways, so my complaint is time. It doesn't move like at the right speed, and so it cracks.
Yeah.
So, but on the flip side, so Sarah had to deal with that. Then she had to deal with Dorian and Manon just sleeping together, but also Manon's got to find the Krakens, and that was a whole introduction. Then we got to deal with Adian and his crap in Terrasen, where he's having issues with Lysandra, but also like isn't doing well. Like the war is not in his favor at all right now. So there was a lot, and then it's like, oh right, Kale. Like, we gotta get back to that. So, okay, well, I'm gonna take it step by step. So first, I'm gonna talk about the cadre, then we'll talk about Manon and Dorian. So for the cadre, obviously the beginning pieces, that was the most intense part. Was Iliad and Lorcan are not getting along. Good, and I mean, you know what? If anything, I'm really glad that she made him grovel for a very long time. He deserved that.
Fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I like their ending, but like he needed to be put in his place.
He needed to be put in his place, exactly. So you have that, and then you have poor Gabriel, who's just trying to prove that he's a good father. And his son's not even there. So Uncle Kitty Cat is just along for the ride, third wheel. Then you have Rowan, who probably hasn't slept, and like, I think it even says he like barely rests. He's like always on the run. So like that camp is a mess. And the only thing I can say about it is my favorite chapter in those moments is the one where Rowan has the dream about Aylin with all the kids.
I just read that one. It was so special.
I just love it so much. This is why, like, I secretly hope, one day we'll go back to them, or we'll get that 10-year epilogue that Sarah J. Maas has promised us, like, I don't know, 3 years ago, but it's fine. Like, something, please. Because it was just really sweet. And then, now the witches.
I'm sorry.
Or
did you say my
Avery.
name?
Yeah.
Sorry, did you say my name?
Yeah. So the witches. I would wait.
Queen of the Krakens.
Queen of the Krakens. I just want to.
Croatians.
Yeah, Croatians.
Yeah. How do you say that again, Sarah?
Croatians. I call them Croatians. And I don't care. I want to clarify I'm not as stupid as you think when you hear me say that. I know how Croatia is spelled. I know it's a different word. I didn't care. In my head, I was like, Croatia.
I said Croatians in my head.
A lot of people do.
Croatians is like acceptable, but it is Kraken.
I know that now.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know that until like I heard other people say it.
I know.
Mhm.
In my head, like that's what it is.
It's because the CH is so like, it throws you off.
It does. Yes.
Because it could be like, I think I said Crochins is what I originally had in my head because of the CH.
Oh,
Yeah.
somebody said, yeah, like crochet.
I thought crochet. Well,
Or
originally I was like,
crochet, yeah.
Croatia. That's how I got there.
Yeah.
So just in case anyone's
Yeah.
wondering, that's how I got there. I think what I will tell you as a quick side note, when we did the PowerPoint last year or 2 years ago, I guess now, for this,
Whoa.
My
the
gosh.
funniest part about this was I didn't realize Caltain had shown up, because that tells you how tunnel visioned I was, that I was so focused on Aylin and Rowan that the second time I read it, I was like, we still have Caltain photos, right? And they were like, yeah, Sarah. And I'm like, oh. So that is actually one of my favorite parts, because I think out of all the Sarah J. Maas characters, Caltain, very similar to Tamlin, but the reverse. Once you know the truth, you can never go back to how you originally felt. And
100%.
That's true.
and Caltain, I mean, I hated her guts the first time I read her.
I wouldn't say I hated her, but I didn't like her and I thought she was petty.
Yeah, that was my view.
I hated her because she reminded me of like every mean girl in life. And so I was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I think that
hate
was,
you.
but and to her credit, to Sarah's credit, I think that was the
Yes.
goal,
Yes.
was
Right.
to make you think of every mean girl who had ever teased you or done something to make you
Yeah.
look bad in front of the guy you like or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, that was the vibe we were supposed to get. And she was petty and she was shallow, but she was also manipulated. And
Yes.
that's where it's like, oh God.
Well, and it's cool to see. I mean, I don't know if cool is the right word, but it is interesting to see when you go back and you reread Throne of Glass, how you see that manipulation was very early on. Like I don't
Right.
think we ever saw her not manipulated, technically.
No.
And I think in a weird way, when Dorian has the conversation with her and he basically apologizes and says to her, you know, I wish what happened to you didn't happen. It's almost like Dorian's us as a reader, because, you
Yeah.
know, at that
Yeah.
moment, we can all sit and realize like, okay, we were kind of mean and cruel to you. And
Well, and I think the other thing about Caltain on a reread is not only do you see the manipulation immediately, but you're no longer clouded with this mean girl persona. So you're
Yeah.
seeing that she's just a girl trying to get ahead in life. She's just
Yeah.
a girl who's trying to raise her station, as all girls would do through marriage in that quote time period.
100%.
Like
Right.
she's not acting any different than society has taught her to act. And so you can understand and empathize and sympathize at that point, because you're like, well, yeah, I would do anything in my power to get the hell away from Duke Parrington if I was in her position.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
yeah.
And I
So
think one thing, you know, touching on what you had said, Sarah, like when Dorian is talking with her and like we as the reader are kind of like, ooh, sorry. I think that also like Sarah's also having us check our own life and how we're treating people who like might be going through things that we just don't know about.
Right.
And just being like more empathetic and kinder to people in general.
100%. I think you're 1,000% right. I mean, it's sad that it took that moment that she was dead to have that conversation with her. But I think, I mean, to kind of go off of what you said, Caitlin, I mean, when you think of Dorian's perspective of Caltain, I think a lot of us immediately jump to Selena's, because that's, you know, the point of view we really saw it in. But Dorian's wasn't, you know, he kind of viewed her like Avery just said, oh, she's just a girl trying to get the crown because she wants to get ahead in life, not understanding that there were all these stakes and what it truly meant for her. And I also don't think Dorian really understood that until he found out Selena was Aylin and seeing what a woman in that position has to go through versus him as a man. And it was, yeah, I think that's a great piece of advice and point of view. Be kinder to people. Take a step back, Yeah, so I think those are the two things. Now, before we get to the rescue, I just want to again plug the Air of Fire deleted scene because Asar is extremely important when you read the deleted scene because you know who she is to Lorcan. You do if you don't read the deleted scene, but you understand the importance of her and how she actually was one of the first few people to really kind of see that they were mates, Aylin and Rowan. But I loved kind of even going back to the female thing and something I don't know how, but I wish we would have gotten more politics of Dornell because we kind of see the inner workings with Asar. Asar's whole reasoning for telling Iliad, first off, was to protect a woman from an abusive man, which was Karn. But also to, she risked her status in Maeve's court, sort of, to tell her the truth or to speculate where Aylin was, which is a whole other thing. I just want to take a moment and appreciate that. Also appreciate that Iliad was like, I'll do it. And all the boys were like, what? And she's like, move aside. And like immediately just walked up to this like Fae bar and was like, I'm looking for this guy. And they're like, what? This human? So quick appreciation. The only other thing that I will say before we kind of get more towards the middle section of it, something that I think was hard for me as a reader as a hardcore Aylin stan, like I just was reading it for Aylin. It was hard that this was the final book of Aylin and she was going through so much trauma. So I didn't get to see a lot of her like extreme sass that was so prominent in Queen of Shadows and quite a bit in Empire of Storms. And so, obviously I understand when she was rescued, she needed a moment to get through it. But I remember even when we go a little bit more in the middle, one of my favorite parts is after everyone finds out who Maeve is and that she's Valg, she runs to a stream and she says to Rowan, have you believed the swagger I've been pretending this whole time? And it's like, as a reader, you're like, no. So if we ever see Aylin again, I would love to see that strong.
Yeah, I do remember going through and just like feeling that she was, obviously she was dealing with everything that she just went through, but like she was just so quiet. Like she was just it was like she was a shell of herself.
Yes.
And obviously we get rewarded in the end, but it's hard to read that knowing who she is and how she's currently not that person because of what she's gone through.
Yeah. Yeah. Even seeing her interactions with Irene for the first time. While it was obviously shock of seeing this girl that you had, saved all those years ago, I think there was also a piece of her that was, she didn't get to enjoy it as much as I think she would have wanted to because she was still dealing with, sleepless nights and the need to constantly work and to not take a break. And I think that was another thing that was, Rowan was like, rest. And she's like, no, let's do this. And he's like, no. So
I think she didn't really start to breathe life into herself or believe that she could breathe any kind of life into herself until after the lock.
I would agree.
Because she's not going to take the time to breathe life into herself when she feels like it's hopeless anyway.
Yeah.
So if she's going in with that mentality, then, I think it's that moment after the lock where she's just like, I didn't expect to survive this.
Yeah.
That like, she's like, okay, now I have this new lease on life, but what do I do with it? I'm in this Fae body. I've lost my human self. Like, what do I do?
Yeah. She even tells Rowan, like, she didn't expect to make it this far with him. And he even says, at one point, I think right before the lock, he's like, she doesn't even expect to see her 20th birthday. Like, she thinks she's going to be a teenager and never see her 20s. Like, and that's hard for him.
That's what made me so mad. Speaking of that part, like right before the lock, and like I was enraged. I don't know about all of you guys, but I was so angry with all of those people voting for her to do this.
Yeah.
And I know I know it had to happen
Right.
for the plot to move forward. Like I understand that, but it just felt so like the lack of loyalty for everything this like 19-year-old has done. Like so upsetting.
Well, I think what was hard too was Rowan was the only one in the room
Right.
being like, no, my vote is no, we're not doing this. Like, and it's also one of my favorite moments because I mean, a lot of people complained that Rowan doesn't have a lot of personality post Heir of Fire. And this was like when he's like yelling at the top of his lungs. He's like, we're not doing this. And she's like, you don't get a vote outside. Like that. And so it was a good moment.
Yeah.
Would you guys have voted similarly?
So I think everybody who voted was put between a rock and a hard place because
Yeah.
Aylin gave them this opportunity to essentially say, do you want to do this now or do you want to do this later? Because either way, we're going to have to do this.
Right.
And it was more of like she is the only one who can do this. I can't take her place. I can't step in. I can't do what needs to be done, but it needs to be done. What's the call? Do we do it now and remove Erewhon from the equation?
Right.
And only have to deal with Maeve and the Valg, and hopefully that will help. Or do we rely on her fire ability?
Right.
And then there was too much up in the air either way. But like they almost had a guarantee in this situation that Erewhon would be taken out.
Except for he wasn't.
Well, he wasn't, but that's because she made a different deal and the gods reneged on their deal and like is a whole thing. But they didn't, the people making the decision didn't know that Aylin was gonna go do that. So
I know
it's hard to be mad at them, but also understand because Aylin is the type of character who's not going to give you all of the information.
Well, and I also think, because I just went back to the chapter, for anyone wondering, it's chapter 91. 91 is the voting chapter. And what's interesting about it, and I think this is a piece that I kind of forgot was right before they had voted, was the conversation around Irene. Because Irene said, I could do it. And Aylin immediately was like, no, you're pregnant. You're not doing it. And so that was at the forefront of everyone's mind. So the first person that voted was Hussar, and she said no.
Not surprised.
Then it was Dorian, and Dorian says yes, which honestly that one kind of surprises me because I think Dorian would probably say let's wait. And then it doesn't say where everyone else had voted. It just said that Rowan was last. I can assume that Kale would have said no because it's his wife, and that is totally fair.
Right.
I'm assuming that the rest of the Southern Continent voted like Hussar and said, do it now. So the only option, the only person in the room that would have said wait would have been Iliad.
I would also like to just point out that you said this is chapter 91. I was so emotionally distraught at this point. I don't even think I remember the voting. Like, I genuinely don't think I remember the voting. I think I was like literally just still hyperventilating. And then, because you go to this, you go from that to this, and you're like, Jesus Christ, whiplash.
Yes.
And then, and then at the end of this, you go back and like, here's the thing about 89 and 90.
Yes.
The after effects of 89 and 90 just continue to hit you throughout the book because she keeps bringing them up. Manon thinks about it. Dorian asks about it. Aylin asks about it. And you're just like, oh my heart, can we please just stop for a second?
Right. Well, and it's funny too because typically when new readers are like, okay, where's a good pause? I always say read 89 and 90 together because that you have to, and then do 91 to 103 in one go because that's the vote, that's the lock, and that's the fall. So it is all of it in one go. So at least get to the fall, get to the line where Aylin says human no more, and then take a break.
I just want to say one thing about my fun Sherpa. So I love her. Her name's Nikki. I'm going to stop calling her my Sherpa. Nikki, I'm literally, so I communicate with her via Snapchat because I am 87 years old. And so I was Snapchatting her and I FaceTimed her during 89 and 90 right before everything happened because I knew what was coming. I could tell what was coming. And I was like, basically like, please tell me this isn't happening. Like I'm not going to be okay. And she didn't answer me. And so then I like get through it and I keep going. And she FaceTimes me on page, like 2 pages before 800, like 798. And I was like, so they're like in the thing and this girl is handing her a kernel of power. And she's like, I'm going to go. I'll talk to you in like, 10 pages. And I was like, okay. And I'm still like, the whole time.
Well, and I think what's funny too is like for anyone who wasn't a part or hasn't seen it, we Sherpa'd our friend Alex through these chapters and we did it live on Zoom. But the best part about it is because it's me at the end of the day. So I sneakily made her light a Manon candle like 5 chapters before we got to it.
And you said the Asterin was going to be fine.
You did.
I did.
That was bad.
I didn't mean to. It kind of slipped the tongue and I was like...
You were like, Astrid's gonna be fine, and we all went.
We were all like,
I mean, technically, when I think she's fine, I think she's with her hunter. So I'm like, she's fine,
Right.
That is where my head goes. I'm being I'm being totally serious.
Also say something along the lines of like living. Like there was like you said something.
It was something. It was like it was great.
I did say live a few times. Like
the amount of and then at one point, so Alex is like me, and she starts crying, and she can't keep reading. And so Sarah's like, I'll read it for you.
Yeah.
And then she starts reading it out loud. And if you watch the videos in the little boxes, like Ashley's laughing, May is laughing.
No, May was crying. May was sobbing.
Sarah is reading. I'm sobbing. Alex is sobbing. Like, and Sarah's just fine.
I'm deadpan reading it. I'm like, so
you're like, I've got this.
Yeah. I was like, this is fine. So if anyone needs a friend to read it to them aloud, I'm happy to do it. I've done it a few times. That's like totally fine.
It'll hurt you.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Manon, I did want to bring up one thing, which is something I noticed on my reread because, like Avery, I didn't notice certain things because I was too focused on Aylin and Rowan. She's too focused on the witches. Yeah. I didn't notice that there is a clear indication. Uh-oh, did I just mess up the stream? Hold on, I hit something. Oh, nope, I didn't. Okay, I didn't notice that there is a clear indication that Manon, because she's Kraken and Iron Teeth, so she could. There was a very brief paragraph about the Fae side in her because Krakens have a certain type and Iron Teeth, and that's a whole biology thing that Sarah didn't really go into. But anyways, she brings up the fact that Krakens have mates, and that at one point something happens to Dorian and Manon screams in a way that is very similar to how Aylin reacted to Rowan, and it indicates that Dorian is her mate. And I was curious, did anyone else notice that, or does anyone think that Dorian and Manon are mates?
Let's be honest, I read Kingdom of Ash once, and I didn't remember Manon and Dorian had a bunch of sex, so I didn't remember that.
They do. It's it happens. I feel like one of the dragon almost like eats him or something, if I remember, like one of the Iron Teeth dragons. Like they come and attack.
Is it the spider situation?
It might be the spiders. I thought it was when the Iron Teeths like come to attack the Kraken camp, but it could be the spiders. But anyways,
I feel like if anything, it might be the spiders, because then he like turns into a spider and then he kills the spider, and that's how he. It's
very like early on, like it's in the first half.
That feels spider.
Yeah, it might be the spiders. But anyways, he like Manon thinks he's gone. Like she thinks he's like been swallowed up and is dead, and then he ends up being fine because he's got, as I like to call Dorian, or in this book, WTF, because so many things happen to him. Yeah, he burns through its mouth or something. Yeah, see, I'm not crazy. So like he does do something, but the point is like it was in that moment, and I read it, and I read it again, and then I read it a third time, and I was like, is Sarah telling me that Manon and Dorian are mates? And
this is some mate shit.
It felt very matey, and it felt very much like Manon was feeling it and Dorian wasn't. which would make sense.
Yeah. I think she's ahead of the curve on him on this.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I haven't
Speaking
gotten
of,
to that
just
part yet, so I definitely did not catch that the first time around.
You'll catch it this time. It's like it's when I think he almost gets eaten, and that's when it happens.
I should be getting there soon because where I'm at, they just left with the spider.
oh, okay.
So.
Yeah. I feel like it's
Yeah.
with the iron teeth. I think when the iron teeth come to attack, but I can't
I read it once.
I
so
can't
don't trust me.
remember exactly, but it was okay. So I have a very controversial opinion on Minorian. Like I don't think, speaking of like where are they now? I don't think they ended up together.
I'm going to throw this. I'm going to throw something at you.
I think they stayed like
Okay.
buddies for a while, like
Buddies.
friends with benefits. I think they
They're
stayed
not
friends.
Buddies.
I think they stayed friends. I was trying to be, PG. I think they stayed friends with benefits for a while, and then I think it came down to the fact that Dorian's human. He's a human lifespan, and so he had to procreate with someone, and it wasn't going to be Manon because Manon would keep it for the Witch Kingdom. Obviously, Dorian would want her to keep it. So I don't really subscribe to the idea that they had two children and one gets Otterlin and one gets the Witch Kingdom. That's like a fan theory that a lot of people have. He does not have an extended life.
That we canonically know of.
No, he doesn't.
He doesn't.
That we canonically at this time know of.
He does not.
I'm holding out hope.
I can't talk about my theory about how Dorian's life will progress until we get to crossovers. So
I'm literally going to leave.
I just think it's very because number one, Dorian, he would hold Damaris and he would say, "Am I human?" And then the sword would heat up and it would say yes because it's a truth sword, everyone.
Yes.
By the way, it turns black at the very end of this. I just want to make that
Yes,
clear.
it does.
Okay. And it was very clear that Elena, which is who he gets the raw magic from, the reason she had a longer lifespan was because she was Fae. It had nothing to do with the raw magic. So that's at this point in the story, no long lifespan.
And I will agree with that.
me too.
No long lifespan.
I will not agree that there's not potential for more information in future stuff.
Potentially, if she ever decides to write something. I mean, I will say this for anyone who doesn't know this, Sarah has said she wants to write more Throne of Glass books. That has not been a secret. She has said that, in quite a few lives. And she has indicated the people she's interested in talking about are Manon and Dorian and Fenris. She seems to lean more towards Fenris. And
I'd be okay with all of it.
In my opinion,
Yeah.
she tends to lean more towards that direction, which makes sense because he's the emissary of Terrasen, or I think he's like the ambassador, I think is the official term they give him. But so he's going to be traveling a lot. So I think that's kind of where we're potentially going, in case anyone's wondering. I don't think but it wouldn't surprise me if there was a Minorian novella because she is very interested in writing that couple. And
she also left us with a "will see."
I
would like to see.
I will say too, she wrote Silver Flames, so we know we'd be getting some good content of Minorian,
Oh my gosh.
Phantom pants.
Yeah. But anyways, so I think that's everything in the beginning. Is there anything you guys wanted us to talk about that was like we still got to talk about.
Are we considering Fararsha?
I was going to say that's the only thing that's left, but is there anything?
I think that's like tail end of 1/3 of the way through.
It's at the very end of part one,
not
but
quite half.
It's at the very end of part one. So, but is there anything else before we talked about? I don't really want to talk about Karn because he's annoying.
Nobody wants to talk about that sadistic.
Yeah,
I think. Well, I will say not about him, but about something that really kind of broke my heart in going through all of her trauma and everything was her losing all of her scars and everything. Like,
yeah,
was because that was like such a part of her.
Yeah.
And it helped ground her and remind her who she was. And so the fact that they just took that away was Oh,
I just want to
so
I just want to
heartbreaking.
point out the two very different reactions to the yes after Ashley said that. Mine was very much like a yeah, nobody's happy about that. And Sarah was like, yeah.
Yeah, because let me explain. One of my favorite things to do for returning readers or new readers is I love to point out Aylin's scars to drive impact into that moment.
Yeah.
Because it is a huge part of her story is her scars.
Yeah.
And you know, she's got the one that she marked herself to for promises for Nehemia. She has the witch killer one. She has the bite mark from Rowan that lasted the longest. She's all these scars that she has built up. Some have positive memories, some don't. And
Yeah.
she never, even in Air of Fire, when Rowan says, well, we could get rid of those, she has never indicated that she wanted those scars removed.
Right.
They tell the story of her life.
Yeah. Which is why then Rowan gives her a new tattoo and is also secretly learning word marks on the side, which is we love a king. So it's all, can I just say quick side note? My favorite thing ever too is my mother doesn't understand like royal talk. Like she loves like keeping up with the British royalty. And she's like, Camilla's the queen. And I'm like, no, she's the queen consort. And she's like, well, what's the difference? And I was like, Rowan is the king consort. That is how I describe it to my mother every time.
Oh my gosh.
She's like, oh, it's how she gets it. Like, I'm not
That is
kidding.
so funny.
I always describe it like Rowan. Okay,
Oh my gosh.
for Asha.
Can I take this one?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay, listen. Lorcan has been groveling for a hot minute at this point, y'all.
A hot minute.
A hot minute. Hot minute. You even said it yourself. You appreciated how long he had to grovel for.
I wouldn't call it a hot minute. He groveled for a long time.
I know that's what a hot minute means, ma'am. Anyways, so Lorcan has been groveling for a hot minute, and he decides at this point, because we're in the battle at Anielle, like that's what's happening. He decides to go out on essentially a suicide mission. He's like, Aylin doesn't love me. I don't want to be blood sworn to Aylin. Like, I would rather just die at this point. Like, don't want to.
And the battle's losing. They're losing the battle.
They're losing the battle. So I'm gonna go out and I'm going to do my best to take down as many of these Ilkin as I can before I die. That's my goal. And then Lorcan gets a bunch of really, really bad, very fatal wounds. Like, and uses all of his power. His guts are hanging out of himself. Like, it's bad. And basically, they're all there, as in like Fenris, Rowan, Aylin. They're all up, Kale. They're all up at the top of the tower, kind of looking down.
Exhausted.
They've been fighting. Aylin looks around and goes, where's Lorcan? Nobody knows the answer.
Mm-hmm.
And she loses it, runs on her injury, and finds Fararsha, who is, if you remember, the not Asterian, but the other type of horse that can gallop really fast over the sand, is like the second fastest horse that Kale travels from the southern continent with. Its name means butterfly, but he has always referred to it as Hellas's horse because it has a temper. So she gets Fararsha and she goes out on the battlefield, and the dam is about to burst and she's looking for Lorcan. She eventually finds him, gets him on the horse. They're on their way back, and they talk about how Lorcan is blessed by Hellas, and Aylin is blessed by Anieth, who is Hellas's consort, and now they're riding on Hellas's horse, and it's like a whole thing. And it's one of my favorite scenes because it's so good.
It's a very visual scene.
It is. It's painted very, very, very well. And at one point, Lorcan is going to sacrifice himself for Aylin because she's not going to make it to the castle. So he's going to get off of the horse so that she can make it. And she holds on to him and is like, absolutely not.
This is
So
it's also, so there's a few things. One, everyone who's watching has basically already, they're beginning to grieve Iliad and Lorcan because
Yeah.
they at this point are done. The other thing too, which I think kind of stepping back before the battle had happened, and I think was an important piece, was, you know, when I think Lorcan, out of all of the cadre, takes finding out that Maeve was Valg the hardest. It is the biggest blow to his personality. And while he is down and accepting this, this is when Illy comes up to him and basically tells him, nope, I'm still not forgiving you. You're still a piece of crap. You can die in a corner, blah, blah, blah. And then my favorite thing is when he walks away, because he apologizes. He says, I'm sorry to her. He walks away, and Gavriel is the one that talks to Iliad and says, you know, this probably wasn't the time.
Yeah.
You probably shouldn't be beating him down right now. And it's funny because that is probably one of the moments where I feel the most like Iliad, because like I have been that person that's like, no, you've pissed me off. You're going to hear how pissed off I am, and you need a deal. And we need people like Gavriel in our life to kind of pull us in and say, listen, they know, okay, they're at their lowest, like now's not the time. And that is also what drove Lorcan's actions to go out there on that battlefield at that moment. And it is also what drove Iliad, because Iliad was so regretful of that being the last conversation she had with the man she loved, because I think we all knew she still loved him.
Yeah.
And so that
I
was,
think she
it was a big
also
deal.
pissed off that he decided to go on a suicide mission.
Right.
She's like, are you kidding me?
Right.
Right now?
I mean, even Aylin, which is why I always say I don't forgive Lorcan because Aylin can't. Aylin forgives Lorcan for Illy, because she's like, listen, I need you as an asset, as a Fey warrior, important to have on my side. Secondly, I'm doing this for Illy. You can love
Well,
a
she
man.
says, I would not take away from you that which you
Yes.
want, but I can't also have you here and not trust you.
Right. And
so
it was
without this.
It was a very queenly decision. It wasn't driven by emotions, and like, I'm happy to hold emotion for her.
Can we talk about how when Aylin first gets taken in Empire of Storms,
yes,
right? She does it, one, because Lorcan called Maeve, and two, she does it because she doesn't want Illy to be injured or hurt or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And then we have this scene where Aylin lets go of the fire that's been building because of Lorcan and Iliad. Again, it's like that's like one part. Like, I'm obviously like, I'm happy that they like were dead, but I'm just like so frustrated. I'm like, it's just you two again. It's your fault. Like, it's just, I don't know. It's very frustrating.
It was, and that was another piece of it. It was, you know, Aylin decides to use her fire in that moment, and it is also the moment that Rowan realizes, because the conversation that happened right before was Fenris basically saying, oh, she's not going to use her fire because she has PTSD from all the torture Maeve did. And Rowan's just kind of like, I don't need to know that because she hasn't told me that, and that's really up to her. But that's when Rowan realizes, yeah, I didn't think that was the truth. I knew there was something else going on. She's been holding on to that for Maeve. And Aylin will always sacrifice for her friends. She will always sacrifice for the people she loves. And I think she also forgives Lorcan a little bit for him being the one that went and rescued her with Rowan.
Because there was a sound reason for it that we don't necessarily agree with, but there was logic behind it.
No. I'm saying Lorcan was with them to rescue Aylin. And I think Aylin accepts that, like, you know, Lorcan took on a little bit of responsibility of what had occurred to her, and, you know, because he was a major contributing factor into why Maeve captured her. But Lorcan went with Rowan out of loyalty to Rowan and Rowan's mate, and I think Aylin understands that. And so when the time comes that it's the reverse, she's going to do the same thing for what he did to her. And I think that's a big piece of it. I have major issues, and it's not a surprise, not a secret either, with Lorcan and his actions in Empire of Storms. However, once the scene happens with Farasha and we get to the end of Kingdom of Ash, I don't care. He's fine.
Yeah.
Totally fine with me. But it is one of the more powerful things, and I think if Throne of Glass ever becomes like a adaptation of a TV show or a movie, this is going to be a scene that people are going to be looking forward to, is this moment with Iliad on the horse.
Yeah. And
it's the Pelennor Fields of
yes,
Throne of Glass.
Yeah.
Like every time.
Well,
Yes.
and I think what's also great about the Fly Farasha scene, which is pretty much how all of us lovingly refer to it, is the scene that follows that, where Fenris is the one who sits there at the end of the bed with Lorcan while Elite is out healing with Irene, and Lorcan knows that Fenris volunteered for that, but he's putting on like a brave face. And I like the camaraderie that happens there. And then I also like after he goes back to sleep and wakes back up, that like Elite is there and they have that. And then there's also the cute little moment where like he wraps his power around her ankle and she says, I missed that.
Yes.
Really sweet.
Yeah.
So
it's a really soft side of Lorcan that we obviously needed since the beginning.
Yeah.
And it's nice to see it return. Someone says, I think she was already thinking about using her powers to save the army. I would agree, because even before the battle had started, the Khagan's children had all said to, I don't remember which one it was. I don't think it was Sartak and I don't think it was Hussar, but one of them had said to her, you have to prove to us that we're going to go to Terrasen with you.
The only other sibling there is Caution.
Yeah, but I can't remember if it was it Caution? I don't know. It was one of them.
It sounds like a Hussar thing.
It sounds like a Hussar thing, but I can't remember who it was in the tent. But one of them had said it, and I think, while naturally I think they would have gone to Terrasen, this was Aylin's like, they're going to Terrasen, I'm going to prove it to them moment. Mm-hmm. She needed to do this to prove to everyone and to give the soldiers hope, because she knew that news would travel that she was with them. What she didn't know was that they knew that, the Terrasen soldiers at that point didn't know she was with them, So it was an important thing. Someone said, do you think that Aylin is able to trust him at some point in the future, meaning Lorcan?
I
think so.
I think that it will take time to build it. I don't think she's going to trust him with everything right away. But think, let's, think futuristically, right? That, they're living a happily ever after, and she trusts a lead, and a lead trusts Lorcan. So I think that's going to be the biggest factor to 100%.
Well, and I think there's opportunity with him being a Lord of Parents at that point. Like he's going to be involved in different courtly decisions that are made in different aspects of Terrasen court life way into the future, that there are going to be more moments for him to prove himself and prove his loyalty to Terrasen and to Elide and to Aylin as queen. So I think eventually she will grow to trust him.
I think this is also where Rowan's history plays a factor as well.
Absolutely.
Being the consort, being the one who was, Lorcan's right-hand man the entire time he was blood sworn to Maeve. I think if Rowan didn't think it was a good decision, he would have told Aylin and said, we're not doing this. But the fact that Rowan, not that he lets Aylin make decisions. I think Aylin makes the decisions and then Rowan has to deal with the consequences. But I think this would have been an instance where he would have stepped in if he didn't feel like Lorcan could be trusted.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of where that is. Okay, part 2. I'm going to say, let's talk about this for 10 minutes, because really we're going to get into spoiler territory. So I'm going to say at 9:30 my time, so 10:30 Eastern, so you have literally 10 minutes. At the 9:30 clock, we're going to switch to full crossover, because we're going to talk about the fall and all of that. So we're going to give about 10 minutes, and then once we hit that 10-minute mark, I'll give you guys a quick little ACOTAR speech before I send my non-spoiler people out, and then we'll have full spoiler conversation. Non-spoiler. So we talked about the witch's death. We've talked about how we've all felt about it. Gavriel's death. Now,
I have thoughts.
I was going to say, so this is a really interesting thing. I wonder now, I don't know if anyone else feels this way, but I would say, do we all feel like that the witch's death felt like Sarah had always planned that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. To me, it felt like it did. It felt like it was something that she had always planned. Gavriel's death
was unnecessary.
Was wholly unnecessary.
No.
Post the witch's death.
Necessary.
It was not.
think it was. It was
thing
so random.
You can't have all of the witches die and then none of the cadre. Like that just is not. One of them had to go, and because she
it.
saved Fenris, it was like it has. You know, you're not getting rid of Lorgan or Rowan at this point. We don't know where Vaughn. He's off doing whatever.
I know.
So like Gabrielle's the only one left, and it was. I think even more brutal for the reader because of like where Adian and he were at in their relationship.
Yes.
Like that broke me. It was so sad.
I think I agree with Ashley. I kind of agree with both camps. One, I don't think Gabrielle's death was always planned, but I also agree with Ashley that you can't let everyone on Aylin's side live.
Agree.
I am of the unpopular opinion that I think Dorian should have died. But
I've heard that one a lot. I also I wouldn't have been mad if it was Adion instead.
I would have been devastated, but I understand why.
Yeah.
That would have been an interesting death.
It would have been.
I think it would have been a better read than having Gabrielle die.
What if it would have been them both? Like father, son together.
Hold on, I have to wrap my head around Adian's death.
Okay, you wrap.
It would have been good. I feel like both of them together. Father son moment.
Okay, I understand the impact of Gabrielle's death. I understand the brokenness you feel where they're at. I get it. And I also understand that you can't have all of the cadre survive and all of the 13 die. Logically, yes. Did it feel like we had this huge, major, like heart-wrenching, gut-tearing death, and then we had to throw another one on top of the pile? I was just like, I can't.
And I also just felt like it felt a little flat for me. I was like,
it did.
Just go. Like it's like it was like it was like his solution.
It felt flat because, well, there's a few factors. Number one, I think if you look at like after the fall, that moment after the fall, I would agree. There is a chunk of the book, and it's not the last few chapters. It's like right before Aylin's coronation. It's like everything that's between the fall and Aylin's coronation. That to me felt rushed and potentially like there might have been multiple plans, but we just needed to get to one conclusion. And how are we going to get to that conclusion? And I mean, to play devil's advocate, like let's look at everyone in Aylin's thing. Rowan was going to be safe no matter what. Right. You know, Fenris was going to be safe no matter what because of what had happened to him earlier in the story. Yes. It wouldn't have made sense to kill him. Okay. Right. Adian would have been an interesting death, but I think I don't know if it would have had the same impact because he wasn't with Aylin the whole time. I think if he was with Aylin a little bit, it would have been an interesting death. Lysandra would have been a bad plan because
a bad call
because you have Falcon who's saved all. So that would have been that Lysandra ties pieces, so she's out. Kale is a horrible thing because Kale had his own book, he had his own story, he was done. Irene, she's pregnant, that wasn't going to happen to her.
Yeah, no.
So your options were Dorian, Gabrielle. Lorcan was out because he just had his traumatic moment, and so was Iliad.
Yeah.
So it was really between those two characters, and she wasn't going to kill Dorian.
Right. So I feel like if you have to kill Gabrielle in that instance, like, sure, do it differently. Like, the problem I had with it was that he literally was like, open the gate and went out and sacrificed himself. And like, you could have had this really great, like, father-son bonding moment, go beyond the gate, fight really, really hard, and then Gabrielle dies protecting Adian from like the last Ilkin or whatever. Yeah. Like you could have had like a really, really poignant moment and not just him dying off page beyond a gate, sacrificing himself for his son.
I think that's
I do agree with that. Yeah.
It was off page.
Yeah.
And like I just felt like, you know, we praise Sarah's writing all the, like, obviously we love the books, we love her writing. But I was like, that was a part I was really disappointed. I felt like there was so much, like, Avery, you just gave a fantastic example of something that would have been much more enjoyable to read than this kind of pathetic death.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah.
I wouldn't say pathetic. I would say lackluster. Like it just doesn't hit the same because it's off page.
It didn't hit the same.
Right.
And I think the other piece of it is, and I think obviously to Sarah's point, I don't think she wanted to give us a resolution because it makes Adian's death more important it makes Gabriel's death more important to Adian is what I'm trying to say. But
even if it's, sorry.
I was going to say, like, I felt like even the only conversation they really had together was that one in Empire of Storms. And I would have loved to, I think it would have had more impact if on that beach in Empire of Storms, Gabriel had walked up to Adian and said, I'm doing this for you. And when I get back, we're going to have our time together. Then his death would have felt like, oh my God, because
they never had the time.
They never had the time. And Adian could have still been pissed at him and that would have been fine. Like, he doesn't need to be hunky-dory with his dad. But I would have just liked a second conversation with Adian rather than it just be the one in the tavern on Skull's Bay.
Well, and then to my other point with the example, like in my brain, they still haven't had that conversation. They still haven't made up or anything. Like, so the fact that Gabriel would at that point then show his love for his son and sacrifice himself in front of his son would not only have more of an impact there, but then the whole blood swearing ceremony with Aylin later that already hurts would just hurt more.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And then I know we have a few minutes and I want to get to the questions we have in Slido, but I think to wrap up just the last part of Throne of Glass, I mean, it's so sweet. And I think Kingdom of Ash as a book has some rough patches and we just brought up one, but I think we can see where it shined and the ending is one of the best endings. It is.
Oh yeah.
So good.
100%.
Okay. All right. So there's a few questions. So the first one is, what happened to Maeve's owl and who do we think it was?
So they talk about in Tower of Dawn that they think that it's one of the animal form of a healer that she keeps on her at all times because they have the magic to remove the valve.
Yes. Right. For anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about, Maeve has always been seen with an owl. She, most people, you think even in Air of Fire brought up that they thought it was fae. They didn't think it was an actual just animal. They knew it was most likely a blood sworn fae. And then, like Avery said, we found out in Tower of Dawn that it was most likely a healer. And in Kingdom of Ash, even when she's with Erewhon and having that conversation, the owl was not with her. So I think the last time we saw it was when she was in Wendolyn.
The person I guess who asked also put in the comments on the YouTube, I meant more if we thought it was a specific person. I don't think it's anybody that we know the name of.
Yeah.
No.
I'd be interested to see that storyline expand, to see maybe, but again, this is going to go into what we're going into later, so I'll just hold it.
Yeah.
But also what happens to the owl when Maeve comes to Morath? Because I don't remember seeing the owl with Maeve and Morath.
It wasn't. So it was most likely she probably left it. I think she left most of her Bloodsworn. I don't think she took them with her. No one was with her.
Right. But then if you're so afraid of the Valg and that's the reason you have a healer on you at all times, why aren't you bringing it with you when you go to meet a Valg?
But wouldn't he recognize it?
He would have. Yeah. I think the idea was she wasn't going to take any Bloodsworn with her. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so these are kind of a double whammy about the keys and the gods. So the first one says, or I'm going to do the bottom one and then I'll do the last one. So it said, did Aylin send the gods to hell? Is that why she calls herself a god killer?
Unclear.
Yes, she does send him to hell. It's literally referenced in that page. It says hell. It's with 2 L's in case anyone's wondering. But it does say it's a hell realm is the exact phrase used. Hell realm. So yes, she does. Is that why she calls herself a god killer? Yes, because of her punting the gods. The interesting thing to note about that moment, first she sent them to a place where the sun was green. I think the whole planet was green. I can't remember, but it was something about the sun being green.
With lush grasses.
Lush grasses. And then she specifically opens for anyone who's really paying attention, she specifically opens the portal to hell that she opened in Crown of Midnight, which she specifically describes as a chasm. just gonna leave that there.
I'm gonna have a question about that we're gonna have to come back to.
Okay. Now the next one says, where do you think the keys went? So the keys were put into Aylin's arm, and then if I remember correctly, they kind of like burned up inside of her because it was like a one-use type thing. So I think they're gone. I don't think it's like a book of breathings where it was like thrown in a cauldron and it will appear. It's not like that.
Yeah.
Oh, I just thought of something. Hold on. I'm gonna write this down because I'm gonna forget.
Yeah.
I just thought of something.
So I think that's kind of the important thing. Also just want to say before we like totally go into spoiler territory, because I'm going to give it like one more minute. For anyone who doesn't know, yes, that is Aylin, or that is Rhys that saves her in the fall. Some people don't realize that. So I just want to make that is Rhys. That is Rhys in Silver Flames with a pregnant Feyre. And that the Crescent City is a modern city.
Mm-hmm.
It's
the modern city on the curve of the river.
But it's a modern city. I just want to make, she's not time traveling. It's a modern city. Just want to make that very clear. So, okay. We're going to head into spoiler territory. I'm going to give everyone about 2 minutes. Before I send everyone off, let me just pull this up really quick. So our next live, so for anyone wondering, the way we're going to do these lives moving forward is we're doing them once a month. And they are just focused on one book. So our next live is at the end of the month, and it will be at the end of February. I'm just pulling up my calendar. And it is February 24th. We're talking about ACOTAR. Very similar to how we do these lives. The focus is going to be on A Court of Thorns and Roses, but we're going to discuss spoilers up to Silver Flames. We are not discussing crossovers, just spoilers up to Silver Flames. But the idea is the focus is on A Court of Thorns and Roses, which I know makes everyone's eyes gouge out, but you are going to reread it.
My eyes are already twitching.
Can I tell you, I reread it. If anyone's wondering, it's like chapter 20 or something when Rhys shows up. Like, I reread it. I actually really liked ACOTAR the second time. So
my problem is I didn't like Tamlin from the get-go. So every time I've reread it, I just want to, throw the book.
See, I'm starting ACOTAR once I finish Kingdom of Ash, and I have yet to touch ACOTAR since I first read it. So I'm ecstatic to
It's
go.
Gonna be fun.
It's fun. It's fun. Especially, I can say this because most people here have read Mist and Fury. If you haven't, just mute for like
you've
2
already
seconds.
You've already had your 2 minutes. Also, by the way.
My favorite part is when you get to the Moonstone Palace the first time Feyre's there, and Mor walks in because Mor obviously knows, and Rhys is like, "You can leave," and Mor's like, "No, we're just gonna sit and chat." I love that whole scene because it's the first time you see Rhys be like, "Oh my god, please."
I also love that she's, wears a turquoise dress the first time she meets Feyre because she knows. And it's just more.
Yeah. This is actually the first time I will have done a full deep dive of ACOTAR. So I reread them, but not done like a deep dive of it. So this is gonna be fun, is to just kind of go through it.
Wait, that just reminded me. So did you post about this, Sarah? That they're gonna do a graphic audio of Throne of Glass?
Yes. Well, I didn't post about it, but I heard about it.
I'm so excited.
Rowan better have a Scottish accent or I'm gonna lose my mind.
It just
Are we saying Scottish or Irish?
I don't care. It's typically Irish, but I'll take Scottish.
Got it.
It just needs to be
any of them.
He needs to have an accent.
Yeah.
No, but I loved that. That's been my last reread of ACOTAR, has been all on graphic audio, and it's a trip. Let me just, I will recommend it, people. It's hilarious.
I cannot stand it.
What?
I don't like, this is very controversial. I'm not a huge fan of the Rhys voice.
That's not controversial. A lot of people don't like it.
Okay.
Nobody likes it. Who likes it?
I can't stand the winnowing sound. I've very unfortunately heard it.
It's bad.
Bad.
And
That's what makes it fun. It's kind of bad.
Going to put myself through Feyre and Tamlin and rustling sheep.
Oh, that was bad. That was bad.
I'm not doing it.
The rustling, yeah, that was bad.
I was not refused.
Avery, I was in Target getting groceries And I did have my headphones in, thank God. But like, I forgot that like, did that all happened in ACOTAR as much?
Yes.
Because it had been a while since I had reread
Yes.
it. And I was like, oh yeah.
It also very unfortunately happens at the beginning of Mist and Fury. And you're just like, oh
Right.
my
And it feels,
God.
it's funny how like
That is hard that
in
Agree.
ACOTAR, it's not as bad. Like I mean, okay, this is what I'll say. In ACOTAR, when they're sleeping together, it's because they actually love each other. And so you're like, oh,
Right.
okay, I'll just, it's fine. Like it's fine. When they're doing it at the beginning of Mist and Fury, I'm like, maybe not, because it feels like you can feel how traumatized she is. And I'm like, does she want to be having sex with you right now?
What is happening
Like,
right now?
this feels, I mean, it's consensual, but it's questionable.
It feels dubious.
It does.
And it's consent.
It does. But it's like, I have to get, Tamlin is like, he's dealing with trauma in his own way.
Sure. Absolutely.
But, and someone's like, I tried listening to it in 1.8. This is the thing about the graphic audio.
Oh, you can't.
You
You
have
can't.
to do it at the speed. It's the one audiobook you cannot do at like,
Yeah.
I listen to most audiobooks at like 0.15, 0.17.
Yeah.
So
When they do the graphic audio for Silver Flames, I'll listen to it.
Oh, see, I don't want to listen to that
Cassian
one.
voice is
The
great.
Cassian voice is like,
The Cassian voice is great.
sir.
But I'm gonna be, can I tell you, the minute they cast a Rowan, I'm gonna be like I'm gonna need deep breath, because if that was the Rhysand voice, Mama might need to take some shots for this one. I don't know, like, dang. But I am very excited that they're gonna do it. I know. If I had to take a guess, it's not gonna come out till the end of the year.
Well, and the Lucian voice. Can we talk for a second about the Lucian voice?
Oh my God, he's
the
amazing.
Lucian voice is just like,
and he's hot.
It is good.
Yeah, Gabriel's hot.
Yeah, Gabriel's hot. So like it's a it's a win-win. Okay, we've officially hit crossover time. I love you all dearly. For everyone,
Get out of here.
Get out of here. Yeah. Okay. So this is gonna be the fun. I will say this. This is gonna be the fun part about the Tower of Dawn podcast, because you and I, after reading, Tower of Dawn, we're like, okay.
There is a white fucking star on Kale's back from the magic that hit him.
Can I tell you?
I can't.
Tower of Dawn holds the key to the crossover.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
It is so obvious. It's like
Somebody wanted to come say hi.
all the Asterian stuff, all the I mean, that's clearly where the crossing happened, because you have Fae, like items that are just just hanging around.
You have the lost Fae that the healers descended from.
Yes. Like it's
like,
and their like grave site that they have.
Yes, the lost, like the city oasis thing in the desert. Yeah.
So someone posted a timeline in our Discord recently that someone made. I'm not going to name names because I don't want to say anything. All I will say is, we're not going to
be those people, but wrong.
All I'm going to say is the timeline was wrong. And when I first looked at it, I was like, it's not that bad. Then the closer I looked at it, I was like, oh, this is really wrong. But the biggest glaring thing, there's two major things I want to just push out there. Number one, there's no mention of a cauldron ever in Throne of Glass.
No.
We triple checked, even, because after I saw the timeline, I said, can someone just check? Because I could be wrong. Maybe it was a mention of it. No mention of a cauldron ever. We looked in all 8 books.
No mention of a cauldron, but like there are food cauldrons that are mentioned, and the witches cooking cauldrons, but like there's not a cauldron.
It is very clear when you get to Throne of Glass, especially when you get to Crown of Midnight and Bobby. The 2 places to look when it comes to the lore of the world building of Throne of Glass, there's actually 3. One would be Crown of Midnight and Bobby Elligs's conversation. The second is in Tower of Dawn / Kingdom of Ash, and it's the Erewhon / Valg conversation. And the third piece, which is kind of a throwaway, but it's just something to take note, is the truth god that is mentioned in Queen of Shadows. So those are your 3 main indications. I skipped the one in Air of Fire, but there's also some Air of Fire fun stuff. But the
Yes.
main point is, in every single one of those main conversations and outside of those main conversations, there's never mention of a cauldron. It's very vague. And there are two major wars that get brought up in Throne of Glass. And it's kind of similar to when Sarah J. Maas brings up Aurelia and Aurelia, meaning sometimes she says Aurelia as in the continent in which Otterlin and Terrasen live on, and sometimes she says Aurelia as in that continent, Wendelin, and the southern continent, meaning the whole world. So very similar to that, there are two mentions of demon wars, and there's a mention of the war that Brannon was a part of. Now, the demon wars, it's not clear if Maeve was around during that. It's mentioned very vaguely, so it's not clear. But then there's another war that's brought up quite a bit, and this is the war that Brannon was involved in. Now, specifically in that timeline, it mentioned that the 1,000 years of peace takes place before this, and that is incorrect. It takes place after this, because the King's Flame flower that Aylin sees at the very end of Kingdom of Ash blooms after Brannon has dealt with Maeve. And then it blooms for 1,000 years, and then all of this happens. So, just want to clear that up. Don't worry, when we send out our timeline, it's going to include page numbers, because Avery and I don't like
Are
to be wrong.
psychopaths.
Yeah, we also like, it's okay to poke holes at what we say, because we could be wrong. So, but those are the two
But we're
things.
not wrong.
Well, that's because we like triple check 7 times, so that's why. So when it comes to, so I just wanted to clear up the timeline stuff. Now, going into the things we learn in Kingdom of Ash, there's lots of talk about Erewhon, obviously. And for anyone wondering, one of the first things I did when I did the reread way back when, right before Hosab came out, was I looked at Erewhon's description and I looked at Regulus's description.
Yes.
Side by side. The only thing that showed them side by side matching up was their voices, because Erewhon is described as having a very young voice and Regulus is described as having a very young voice. We both know that they're wearing the skins of God knows what. So, because he sheds Parrington skin and gets the hot blonde one, so I don't really know what's going on with Erewhon, and who knows where Regulus got his. So that's about it.
Ow.
Pretty much it stops there when it comes to Valg and Asteri similarities.
Can I bring up one point from Silver Flames?
What?
I did some digging.
Uh-huh.
I'm not sure I'm 100% correct, so I'm not going to like go nuts on it. But when you reread the Lanthus
Yes.
bit,
Yes.
and we can all pretty much safely assume that Lanthus is Valk.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
He's got black blood. He is described very similarly to Erewhon.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, so we can all agree on that.
Yeah.
When you reread the section about the Daglin,
Yes.
it very much lends itself to the Daglin being
Valg.
Valg. Yes.
That makes more sense.
So
Because I think the big question now.
So then it is, but yeah, well, maybe you're about to say it. You say it.
I was going to say the big question right now is you have the Daglin, you have the Valg, and you have the Asteri. How are they all connected? Well, I can tell you right now, the Asteri and the Daglin, at this point, canonically, don't seem like the same thing.
Right.
They could be off page. It sounds like they are, but Avery and I have looked into it, and canonically, they don't seem the same. Now, the Valg also does not seem like the Asteri. The description we got in Sky and Breath lends itself to be it's not the same. I was kind of hoping, and then we got towards the end, and I was like, oh, it's not them.
I'll throw out that Claire has mentioned, who is resident
Crescent City
knowledge expert, believes that the Daglin and potentially the Valg, if they're the same, are the first iteration of an Asteri creation. That's her working theory.
I also kind of believe that the Valg could be an Asteri creation, or they could be a Hell creation.
Sure.
because it's not very clear where they come from, and based off of the way that the Valg are described, it could be a creation of one of the realms of hell. It could even be one of not canon, but Sarah's very strong theory, Hunt's father's creation, which would be fine with me. Which would be the top prince of hell.
For anybody who doesn't know, Sarah's heavy theory is that Apollyon is Hunt's father.
I'm ready to be right on that. So
I'm willing to let you be right on that.
that's like my one thing, and I will probably be wrong. I'll be like, dang it, I thought I was right.
I had my one, and I got my one.
Yeah. So I'm good. I think that's going to be the interesting thing, is that whole situation. Now, when it comes to Bryce, because everyone always says, do you think we're really going to go to Terrasim and CC3?
Yes.
Does anyone say no?
I think
we're going to Rifthold.
I think that we will. I'm curious as to whether or not we're going to fully, like, the way that we're going to in Akatar. I don't know if we're gonna like see a glimpse, or maybe we'll see, like, I really think we're gonna see Fenris. I don't know if we are going to have a conversation with Aylin and Rowan.
The only reason I think it's going to be Aylin, well, there's a few reasons why I think Aylin has to be involved. One, she's opened a gate to hell twice. And that is literally on the page proven that she's done that. And so that's why I think it has to be Aylin. The downside to Aylin, and it only being Aylin, is Aylin's knowledge of the old language of the Fae is like my knowledge of French, meaning I can order food in France and that's it. Like I can maybe read it. So, which is where everyone in the cadre steps in, and everyone from Dornell, because they are all able to speak in the language. Rowan's tattoos in the language.
Since we're talking about going back to Terrasin, I just wanted to share that I got these sticky notes that says "Take me home to Terrasin," and I wanted to show you. And
listen,
so
I need those.
Those are really cute.
Those are super cute.
They were my Christmas present.
Wait, why are we going to Terrasin? Okay, well, this is a really good time to say, Hosap spoilers. If you have not read Sky and Breath, get out. I'm being dead serious. Please.
You don't want to have this spoiled.
You do not. As someone who had it spoiled, you don't want to be here. Yeah. So peace out. I'm gonna give you like literally 1 minute. Okay, go read it. We don't go to Sarah. I will just be sad. Like that's like the honest truth. I'll just be like, I think we will. I think it's gonna be like,
but
one chapter.
Okay, read.
I just want you to know I'll record her reaction when we do.
Of course you are.
I thought we were all getting a cabin.
We are.
I am saving my PTO to read this book with you guys. Okay.
No,
Who
but
knows? It may
do you think that she's gonna, because right now she's only contracted for 3 Crescent City books, correct?
That we know of, yes.
That we know of, right?
Yeah.
So, but there's 4. Like it makes sense to have 4 books in my mind.
Shadow.
Right? I feel like if the majority, I guess the question is like, if the majority of CC3 is going to take place in the world of ACOTAR, I don't think we're going to get a whole lot of Terrasin in that. Like it would make sense to do another like brief, like, big moment or.
So she has indicated, I was on your side, Ashley, about like, it's going to be 4. She's just saying 3 until she did the live right after Hosab came out. She was very adamant that it was 3. She was like, it's 3, maybe a novella. That's what she said.
Well, she said it was 3 that would end with Bryce and Hunt.
Yes. And she indicated that she'd be willing to do a novella, but at this point it's the trilogy. She was it wasn't like ACOTAR when she ended that and she was like, well, I have other ideas. No, it was like, this is it. We're moving on.
That's kind of disappointing.
I think when Sarah said to everyone, it's like 40% in Prythian, I think it's more like 35% and she can't say how much of it's in Terrasin.
Oh.
I think that's what it is. And all I'm going to say is that if you do your research, you will know that this isn't a secret. that there was supposed to be another Throne of Glass book, and it was going to be like an encyclopedia. It was an anthology. It was called
Right.
World of Throne of Glass. It had a 10-year reunion in it. There were multiple reasons why it got delayed, and it was supposed to still be on the docket, and then all of a sudden a year ago, it was taken off the docket. And Sarah has indicated quite a few times that she wants to return to Throne of Glass. And so as a marketing ploy, I think it's going to be tossed in there, but it's not going to be much. It's just going to be a tiny, tiny bit.
Yeah.
And I think also, like, I know people have been like, oh, well, it's going to be Vaughn, or, oh, it's going to be, she's going to run into Kale or Irene or whatever. And I get that. But I also have to think about it from the perspective of someone who's not like us, who reads Sarah J. Maas and then walks away and they have a brain of a goldfish and they don't remember. And then they come back and they read it, you know, in 2 years. And as they're reading it, they're remembering things. That's why it has to be Aylin and Rowan. Because at the end of the day, they're the primary two characters that everyone followed. If it was Manon and Dorian, that would have been fine, but it has to be Aylin because Aylin has opened the portal to hell. And I think it's literally going to be Aylin goes through because she went through Prythian. The other piece of this that Avery and I have figured out is, I don't know how the word gates work, but it seems to me like they're landing in places they've landed before. For instance, Nesta had landed when she had used the harp directly in front of the river house, and it seems Bryce landed in the same spot.
Additionally,
Right.
the last time the harp was used was at the river house when Nesta saves Feyre.
Yeah.
And prior to that, Gwen and Emery were dropped off in front of the river house after hitting the stone. And Gwen says something along the lines of, I think it dropped us where we needed to be.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a similar intonation to what Sarah J. Maas said, is that she
Right.
fell through the portal looking for an answer, and she was dropped where she
Needed
could
to
find an
be.
answer, where she would, yeah.
Which,
So-
if we're going off of where portals have been opened before, I understand why everyone assumes it's Rifthold, because obviously we have Elena's tomb. However, that has been completely destroyed because we don't even know where Mort is.
Well, that and the Northern Rift.
In the Northern Rift. The other option would be Endovier, because that was where Aylin had fallen through the world. We don't know what the option would be in Terrasen, but it lends itself to think there would be a spot because Mala had taken root there with Brannon. So she would have some sort of connection there.
What I see happening is I truly think that our first encounter in Terrasen is going to be with Fenris. But
That would make sense.
I think that he will lead them to Aylin. I don't know if we're going to spend more than 3 chapters.
Oh, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Like I don't think it's going to be long. I think Aylin's going to be like, all right, yep, let's go take care of this. And they go.
Yeah, it's going to be like I think it's going to be 1 chapter and we're done. It's going to be like The Fall. She's in and she's out. And so we see them, we get a glimpse of them, and that's all I need.
But you don't think she's going to sit it out, though?
I think, well, I have based off the timeline, it's been about a year since the end of Kingdom of Ash.
Okay.
I'm of the interpretation that Aylin should be pregnant at this point.
Yeah.
And I think Rowan's going to be like, you're sitting out. Like, open the gate and sit down. Like, I think it's the one time Rowan is going to step up.
What if what if that it's Dorian? What if Aylin shows Dorian and Dorian goes to Crescent City and makes the drop, and then he can go back and live happily ever after with Manon?
I don't know if he can make the drop.
He cannot make the drop.
I love the crack theory.
Oh, no. Caitlin's not wrong, because a few people have brought this up. If they think that Dorian can make the drop, I don't think he can. I don't even understand what the hell the drop is. But to me, it feels like some Asteri BS that no one wants to do after all this is said and done. So I don't think.
Nice thought.
It is a nice thought. I think if Bryce ends up in Rifthold and she runs into Dorian, the biggest thing is that Dorian won't be able to communicate with her. She's only going to be able to communicate with basically everyone in Dornell and the cadre. I think everyone in it's like Rowan, Lorcan, Adian maybe, and Fenris are the only ones that can speak to her. Aylin's like broken English. So like that's where it's all going to kind of come together. Yeah. I also think there's a few pieces from Terrasen that I like to bring up, one being the wolf tribe of Terrasen. And for anyone who doesn't remember, it was the Fae who were stuck in their wolf form when the magic was gone for 10 years. And then when magic came back, they chose to stay in the wolf form. And they actually live above Rune Mountains. If you look at the map, they're above Rune Mountains on the map. They have potential to go with Bryce because they could start the tribe up with Ethan and the true Fendir heir. You also have mentions of dragon shifters because, sorry not to bring up pain, but Aylin laid in dragon glass in Kingdom of Ash, which also indicates our lovely little dragon friend in Crescent City. So there's a few things. Can Manon speak in the Old Tongue? No, she cannot. So
I have a question about, so Sarah, you were talking about how the keys were absorbed into England. Do we think that this could be similar to the way that Bryce is the horn now?
I don't know.
Could it be used? Could we use the keys the same way that we use the horn?
Yes, but I think Aylin has used word marks, so she'll just use word marks. Because she used word marks to open the portal in Crown of Midnight. And then she used it again in Kingdom of Ash. So I think she would just rather use the word marks. That's also why I think Aylin will get involved. Yeah. Oh, Bryce wants to go to hell because Rune told her to go, and so did Hunt, to get an army because Adis has indicated that he would help Bryce. And it is clear that they are clearly not winning right now with the Asteri. And so that's why she's going. She's going to get the army that she knows will defend them from the Asteri.
She's going to hell for help.
She is. Yeah. Yeah. And she thinks she's in hell, but she's actually in the Night Court.
Yup.
So
now, what do you? So I've heard this theory circulating around. Do you guys think that Prithian is one of the layers of hell?
Can be.
Really?
I have thoughts.
You think the whole world?
No.
Or just Prithian?
I think it's the prison. I think the prison is the one of the layers.
That would make sense. The prison has a connection to hell.
Yeah.
The prison not only has a connection to hell, it has a connection to a bunch of things, including dusk.
Right.
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 Just saying.
Right. I'm letting the dust thing. Yeah. I'm letting Sarah explain that to me because I'm like,
I'm excited to see where that goes.
I will happily sit down with somebody and discuss the Dusk Court and everything that I have gathered about it.
It's the one theory I've heard that I'm like,
that needs its own live.
I am happy to do that for you guys. I'll explain it all. I will not be explaining it here. It'll take too long. Somebody said, why do I think that?
No.
Too long.
No. But I mean, I will say this, just like to briefly glance over it. There is mentions of dusk, obviously, in Silver Flames.
And Hosap.
But I'm bringing up in Akatar, it's mentioned in Silver Flames. And so that is where it is indicated. It has also been indicated, I believe, in Mist and Fury and Akawar and Silver Flames that the prison it was kind of just acquired by the Night Court and no one really knows why, but it was its own entity for a long time. And the Night Court is just the one that oversees it.
It's like technically in the Night Court territory based on the map.
Right.
Also.
Yes.
And doesn't
yes.
Reese
They
say,
have the biggest territory.
Yes.
Yes.
So it would make sense. And it's the only one missing from the,
Yes.
lineup.
and
This
didn't-
means on the nose, by the way, in case anybody doesn't know what I'm doing.
Didn't Reese say that the prison was there even before him?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
The prison has
The
been there.
prison
It has
is
been there
where
a while.
High King Finn ruled from.
Yeah. And there's a lot of indications in Silver Flames that there's some old history in the prison. So I think that's why everyone is looking in that direction when it comes to their theories
Well,
around
there's-
Dusk Court and other things. So that's
there's
And
runes.
portals.
There's word
Right.
marks on the sides of the prison. There's
Yeah.
a bone gate. There's portals. The harp was there.
there's a
It's been
lot
a whole
of
time.
yeah, there's a lot of the prison.
Well, and then at the end of Hosab, they talk about an island that's like just off, that's in perpetual twilight. Like, guys,
It's just been there. It is clear that that is
there.
something. So
it's okay. I'll talk about it for hours another time.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But it is one of those things that I legit am like, Sarah will just explain that to me. I'm good.
And I'm sitting here like, I want to tell you about all of the things that I found, and here's all my sticky notes, and here's all of my strings, and I'm
Yeah.
gonna look like Charlie from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
That's
and
the
it's gonna
gift
be
we
fine.
use the most. So
I
okay.
know.
All right, since I know we're wrapping up and we're getting done with our conversation in Throne of Glass. Okay, some indicators for Agatar. Number 1, Discord. We will switch it over today so that you guys can begin talking about Agatar. Please still keep it series spoilers. Just one series. Don't spoil other things. We have new readers. I'm being serious. I think she's already left. I'm assuming because I haven't seen her typed in a while. We have someone who literally has zero indication how Hosab ends, and like
Yeah, she's spoiler free.
she's like my unicorn. So like, do not mess with her. Do not mess with that chat. Cover your spoilers. Indicate what they are. Okay. The second thing is Avery and I will come up with a reading schedule for you guys. It will probably come out next week, just so you know. And it will just be for Akatar leading up to the live. So the live is obviously where we try to do everything. Okay, wrapping up some Throne of Glass things. Number 1, Empire Storm's Tower of Dawn notes gonna come out this weekend.
Yes.
Okay, notes coming out this weekend. Kingdom of Ash notes probably come out early February, hopefully the first week of February. Okay.
Yeah. Tower of Dawn's done. Empire just needs tweaks, and we're done.
Yeah. Okay. Akatar notes will come out after the end of the Akatar live, so you guys have a whole month for that. Kingdom of Ash listen party. Question mark if we'll do the listen party. We probably will, just because we like to do it, but that will be beginning of February, just so everyone knows. So February will kind of be like last wrap up. Okay.
I also probably won't be heavily involved in that, except for popping into that because Sarah is sending me off into Akatar land.
Yeah, so basically what's happening now is I'm kind of transitioning a lot to Avery. I'm overseeing how it's all done, but Avery's going to be taking the bulk of the work. So if anyone's wondering, she's taking the bulk. I get to do a lot of the fun stuff with you guys, which means I get to do more lives. And by the way, Hogwarts Legacy comes out, and you bet I am streaming that. I have already made sure my Pottermore account is ready for it so that I'm all set up. So like, I made sure I was Slytherin and everything.
And I'll probably be on the game night like I always am, working on the notes.
Yeah, so that's that session. Let me think. Okay, so listen party I covered. Podcast. Avery and I are recording Tower of Dawn this weekend. Kingdom of Ash is most likely going to be a part 1 and part 2. That will come out in early February. And then you're going to get only one episode for Akatar. I think that's all we all need. And then Mist and Fury is 1 as well. And then
I thought it was 2.
I can't remember what it says in the
I
calendar.
think Math is 2.
War's 1.
War is 1. Fast is 1. Flames is 2.
I have Math as 1.
Okay. I mean, we can maybe do it.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
It's going to be a 3-hour one if we do.
Yeah. We'll figure it out. We must protect the yeah, exactly. Let me think. So Avery's gonna take over a lot of the Akatar stuff. I get to kind of come along for the ride like she did for me with Throne of Glass. Let me think, what else? Listen party, podcast, notes. Did I miss anything?
Listen party, podcast, notes. What about the chapter guides? Did you say something
Chapter
about that? You asked
guide
about that
for
today.
Akatar will come out this week, next week.
Okay.
I think that's it.
Great.
I'm only semi-exhausted from hearing that.
I'm really excited for the ACOTAR.
The ACOTAR lives are going to be fun.
I'm pumped.
I'm ready to have like
It's
a
gonna be a
deep
good time.
dive about ACOTAR because it is.
I have spent so much time deep diving ACOTAR that I'm so excited to get people to talk to about my crazy. So
Thoughts on CC3 being released? Last question.
November.
This year.
Yeah, I think it's this year.
I think it's gonna be November.
November.
That would be a great birthday present.
It would be incredibly ideal for me. I only have one concert that month. Please.
I think it's November, and if it is November, I think we will know in the next 3 months.
My prediction is announcement in March with no cover by April, book by November.
Yeah.
That's my prediction.
I like that.
I think it's gonna be something like that.
Also, the Waterstones is doing, did you see their giveaway announcement today? They're doing like a signed poster of the new covers, like all together. It looks like a really cool, it looks really cool.
The Throne of Glass ones?
Yeah, the Throne of Glass ones.
Oh.
Like a poster, you said?
I think you have to pre-order. What?
Oh. Okay. Well, if anyone wants to
So-
pre-order it.
Somebody said I thought we would have an announcement already.
You're such
So
a-
SJM usually announces at a minimum 6 months out from release. So about 6 months would be from March if it's November.
Yeah.
So
Oh, look, all I'm saying is it's an expensive box set, actually. Have you seen how much the new box set is?
Oh, I'm not getting that.
It's like
No,
over
you
$300.
have, yeah, it's crazy. No, this is like
Stupid
you
expensive.
pre-order the $8.99 paperback and you get a thing. But they're doing a giveaway for the full box set.
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay. All right.
you know,
I like
and it's
that.
the UK ones, which I like better than the.
Mhm. Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that one. So all I'm gonna say is I'm really glad I got my box set behind me. So
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, we did it. I'm done
We
with
did
Throne
the
of
thing.
I
Glass.
can't believe it.
Yeah, we did
I
it.
can't believe it's over.
I'm ready.
it's only just beginning, Ashley.
The thing is,
Still so much more to go through.
yeah, we're really at the halfway mark.
Yeah. I mean, we've got
7 more books.
7 more books. So it's literally the halfway. This was the dead center.
Yeah,
of it.
we end at the end of July.
Now that we've moved to the 1 book a month schedule,
Right.
because it used to be one every 2 weeks and we were done by like before May. And I was like,
That was aggressive.
We were all
You know
like,
what was
we need
funny?
that.
Was it? I thought it was like a good pace because
It wasn't a solid
pace for a
while.
everyone kept saying to me, "Oh, well, can we move faster? Can we move faster?" And I'm like, "I think this is a good pace." Now I'm like, "No, y'all get 1 book a month. Like
Yeah.
that's all you get because I can't hang. Like I need a break."
Yeah.
So I want to play video games with y'all. I want to potentially get back to loving reading again and read other books with y'all. Like, 1 book a month. That's what you get from me.
Yeah.
Speaking of reading books,
I'm having Wi-Fi issues. Sorry, guys.
Oh, you're fine.
You're right.
speaking of reading books together and being reading book people, Ashley, did you get the arc for the next Bone Shard Daughter?
I didn't request it.
It's on NetGalley if you want it. I'm really excited to start that. And I know we've
So-
always been like reading that back and forth. So.
Yeah, I haven't read book 2 yet. So I need to do that.
Yeah. Listen,
It's too many. Too many good books.
we will do so once some people have been like, what are we gonna do after the mass read along? I will indicate we are gonna do another read along. It will most likely be kind of a very laid back,
Not this aggressive.
drinks will be involved type of read
Lots
along.
of wine.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's gonna be like a wine and wine read along. Like we're gonna whine about the book and drink wine.
So we have
Because
to find a really good whiny book.
already have.
Oh, I know what you're
Oh
thinking.
no.
I just wasn't sure if you were gonna say yet. Do
It's
you wanna
behind me.
say?
It's ready to go. It's gonna
Oh,
be a lot of
God.
fun. So
I'm gonna need something stronger than wine for this.
We can do well, that's fine. Yeah, and then we'll do that. No,
Not Zodiac
it's an
Academy.
old
Absolutely not.
it's an oldie but a goodie.
Oh,
I'll say that
God, I
much.
absolutely am correct.
Yeah,
Just for reference to the people in this Zoom chat, do you guys remember the first time we had a Marco Polo?
oh,
And Sarah
I
Sarah got less than sober and decided to narrate watching these movies.
Yes, I do recall.
This is what she's talking about. Wine and whining.
I do remember this.
Oh my gosh.
it's time.
Okay.
I need to
Follow
reread it.
To
Okay, that's fair.
250 Marco
When you
Polos.
love this.
Yeah, Kaylin will be all for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need yeah. So we might do something like that, and then if we do like another heavy deep dive, I don't know what it will be. At this point, there's a few options. There's more than a few options. But I can't think that far in advance. At this point, I'm thinking we need a fun read, and then we'll once CC3 comes out, we'll evaluate what we want to do as a group and what everyone wants to do. So,
What
okay.
we need to do as a group.
What we're gonna do is we're gonna get a log cabin in the woods and we're all gonna read together.
That's what I want. I want a log cabin.
I talked about setting up a almost like either a time lapse or a live stream of us in the living room.
I think we're gonna need.
Oh yeah. That would be hilarious.
I think we should set up like a camera in the living room so it's like real world where like if you go out there you'll be on camera, but like if you need to go in the back you can, you know?
Yeah.
It'd
be freaking hilarious.
Yeah, I'm like ready.
I just want like Sarah to like pop out into the living room in her like otter onesie, just like sobbing because Aylin showed up.
Or she comes in with her stuffed Rowan.
Yeah, that Katie got me.
Yeah.
I bring that with me a lot of places.
And the bat onesie too.
The bat onesie.
I do have the bat onesie.
Jesus.
I have the bat onesie.
She's prepared.
Yeah, like Big Brother. Yeah, we'll have like a Big Brother camera set up in the living room.
That would be awesome.
So people can come in and read in there, or they can just go read somewhere else. But okay.
Okay.
I'm putting music on.
Goodbye, guys. Bye,
Bye,
everybody.
everyone.
Waiting. This is how bad the delay is. It hasn't switched over yet.